Hello everybody out there in the bookverse, it's Stephanie, and today I am back with my July wrap-up, which I am really proud of myself for the amount of books that I was able to read in July. My TBR Star Hop was really harsh on me. It was a little bit ridiculous how many spins, I almost said spins, how many rolls I had on my TBR Star Hop game, but I managed to do it. I managed to pull it off. Now, I'm filming this a couple days before the end of July, so I actually have one book that I haven't finished yet, and I'll talk about that at the end. But overall, it was a great reading month for me. I read 15 books and started a 16th. So I'm feeling really good about this, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the books that I read. So let's start with the only book that I don't actually own physically. I listened to this exclusively on audiobook. I got it from my library, and that is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. This was a Top Shelf Society pick, and I wasn't able to make the actual live show for it, but I did read the book. I had just had something come up and I wasn't able to be there for it, unfortunately, but I did enjoy this book. So, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd pretty much is exactly what the title says. It's kind of right there. It kind of gives it to you. This guy named Roger Ackroyd is murdered, and Hercule Poirot, her kind of famous detective, private investigator character that Agatha Christie writes several novels about, comes in to solve it. And you know what? I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite. I've only ever read Murder on the Orient Express, and I like that one more. I feel like the twist in this one wasn't my favorite, and there are reasons why I didn't like the way it was done. I can't say though, because that would spoil it, but I wasn't a huge fan of how that one ended, how it was done. I didn't think it was the best, but it was interesting. I like how Agatha Christie kind of goes about this like step by step, figuring out the clues. It's really just a very classic whodunit murder mystery story, and I very much enjoyed that. I think Hercule Poirot is kind of an interesting character, and he's conceited, but he's entertaining and funny. He's an interesting character, and I really do enjoy him in these novels, but I did like it. It wasn't my favorite. I think it'd probably be around 3 stars for me because it was just okay, but I didn't absolutely love it. So next I'm going to talk about the 3 graphic novels that I read this month, and I liked the graphic novels that I read this month. It was a great graphic novel month for me. The first one is Monstrous Volume 3 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. I love this series. I love it. It's so good. I talk about the artwork every time, but just look at that artwork. It is stunning. It's gorgeous. I mean, on the back you can see too. It's just so beautiful, so well done. I think the story is fascinating. It's a very in-depth high fantasy series, and the world building is extreme in this. I think this is the biggest, most complicated world that I've ever read in a graphic novel, which is kind of on the good and the bad side. Like, I love it. I love that the world has so much in it, but you really need to concentrate on learning the names and figuring out how everything is connected and really remember these things as you're reading the series. And I would not recommend leaving too much time between the different volumes if you're reading this series, because you will forget things. It mainly follows this girl whose mother is dead, and she is trying to kind of figure out what happened to her mom, get revenge on that, and also find out more about herself and these very dark magical powers that she has within herself. She's very powerful. People are out to get her, out to kill her, out to use her. She's just the center of this world, it seems like, and she's very sassy and feisty, and she's a character that I like most of the time, but every once in a while I'm like, you're being really annoying, you need to knock it off. But this is a fun graphic novel series. One of my favorite characters, so adorable. Oh, it's not the prettiest picture, but it's right here, and it's this cute little fox girl. I love her. She's adorable. Her name is Kippa, and she's just one of my favorite characters in any graphic novel series, but I highly recommend this. This is probably my favorite graphic novel series I've ever read so far. Sorry if there's noise outside. I don't know what they're doing, but it's loud. The next graphic novel that I read is Witchy. This is by Ariel Slamet Rise. I'm really bad at names. Literally any name, I'm bad at it. But this is a YA graphic novel that I received, and I believe it was an Fairy Loot. I could be wrong. It's one of the book boxes that I got it in. There's got to be something in here that says where it came from, right? Nope, doesn't look like it. But it came in a book box, and I've never gotten a book box graphic novel before. This is the first one I've ever received, which is why I could use it as a book box book, because I needed a graphic novel. And this follows a girl who lives in this world where if your hair grows too long, you are considered too powerful and dangerous, and they kill you, and it's called a witch burning. So the magic is kind of based on how long your hair is. And this young girl's father is killed because his hair is too long, and then she's going to this academy, and she is just scared that something bad will happen to her as well. But she is a cute character to follow. I really liked her a lot. I think it was well done. I think that the character work was well done in this. We really got to know her well and followed her pretty much almost exclusively. I mean, there's a little bit of here and there where we jump to other characters, but she is definitely the main one, and she's very cute and sweet. I like her little friends in here. I wasn't the biggest fan of the art style, so this is kind of how it is, and it's okay, but I didn't absolutely love it. I liked this graphic novel. I definitely will be continuing on with this series. I don't have any idea when the next one's coming out. I don't know anything about that, but I liked it. It was good. It was very easy to read though. So if you want a graphic novel that you can just kind of fly through, get into the story and enjoy it, this one's a good one for that. And the third graphic novel that I read was The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. I loved this graphic novel, but I didn't love the art style. I actually wasn't a fan of the art style hardly at all, honestly. Let me find one that doesn't give stuff really away. So this is kind of how it looks. That's the style of the art in here, and it's not my favorite. I actually didn't really enjoy it at all. Unfortunately, it kind of made me like this graphic novel less, but the story was awesome. I loved the story. I was really invested and really enjoyed that aspect of it. So basically it starts out where these humans do a ritual to try to capture death so they can make them immortal and give them all this power, but on accident they capture someone else, the Sandman, and that is where we kind of start and get going. And I don't know how much to get into because I don't know what would be considered spoilers for people, but I really loved it. I liked the more kind of deeper mythology in there. I liked looking at the different Easter eggs that were thrown in there, the different references to religion and pop culture and those kinds of things that were in here. I think Neil Gaiman did an amazing job of that. I'm really excited to continue on with the series. I know that so many people love it, and I can definitely see why. This story is phenomenal, and I'm really looking forward to it. I just don't like the art style, and I think that's something that is very unfortunate because this could be a favorite graphic novel series for me, but I don't know if it can be when I don't love the art style. You know what I mean? I think the dialogue was great. I think the writing was exceptional. I think the pacing was good. I think the twists were great. Everything was really enjoyable. I just didn't like the art. I thought it would be a little more like the cover. You know, you can see on the cover this type of art style, and I was kind of expecting that a little bit more, but that's not what it is. So I will be continuing with the series, definitely. I just don't know how high up on my love it'll be, but we'll see. So now I'm going to jump into some books where I read multiple books in the same series, and we can kind of talk about them together and separate. But I'm going to start with Fool's Errand and The Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince. Now, technically, these aren't the same series. These are both set in the same world, but this novella is set a prequel to all of her Realm of the Elderlings books, and it just is very related to things that are discussed in Fool's Errand, which is the first book in her Tawny Man trilogy, which is the third trilogy in her Realm of the Elderlings. So we'll start talking about this a little bit first. This is following Fitz and the Fool again, which I love. I am so excited to be back with Fitz and the Fool. I loved this book so much. It was amazing. It was phenomenal. Again, just like every other Robin Hobb book, the character work in here was so good. It's incredible how much Robin Hobb can make you care for these characters and just get drawn into their lives, and she pulls at your heart. Robin Hobb does not have a problem torturing her characters. She doesn't have a problem making their lives absolutely miserable and drawing you in with them. I loved this book. So the first trilogy following these characters, we start out with Fitz, who is a legitimate son of the prince, and then he is given back to his royal family to be raised, and his father abdicates the throne, leaves, and is killed, and then Fitz is essentially raised by this stable master. I can't really talk too much about what this book is about without giving away spoilers for that other series, but I loved it. It was great. It's shorter than some of her other books, and I think the pacing was really good in this one. I think that's something that I struggled with a little bit in her first Fitz trilogy, is it got pretty slow at times. I didn't really feel that in this book. I was really invested the whole time, and I absolutely loved it. I loved getting back with these characters, just feeling that draw to them. It's almost like a nostalgia feel, except for that it wasn't that long ago that I read it. It's just kind of this comfort, this coming home feel, and I love it so much. I would highly recommend it. But this novella that I read along with it just kind of talks about this historical time that is very important to some of the things that happen in Fool's Errand and some of the things that are talked about. This follows a princess who was a long time ago in the line of the Farseers, and I can't really go too much into it because I feel like it might be a little bit of spoilers, but I would highly recommend reading this one along with this series. I think it gives you a lot of backstory, and it really kind of is fun to see some of those things in this that you read about in this. So I would highly recommend it. It kind of gives a little bit extra to the story. And while we're on the novella train, I also read 3 novellas within the Murderbot Diaries series. So this is by Martha Wells, and the first one is All Systems Red, the second one is Artificial Condition, and the third one is Rogue Protocol. So these books are sci-fi series. It follows this Murderbot who is pretty much a security person who goes along on these different expeditions out into space, and he is supposed to protect the people he is bought by, but he really doesn't want to. He just wants to kind of sit and watch his favorite soap operas. So it's funny, it's entertaining. I really like Murderbot as a character. I think it's a very good look into what makes someone human. If they can like be owned, is that slavery when they have some human parts in them? Like, to what extent does having organic parts make you human and give you rights and that kind of thing? It's interesting, but it's kind of done in a lighter, a little humorous way, but also kind of serious. So I don't know. I think the humor and the intense battle stuff is thrown in there very nicely, and I like how that's done. All Systems Red was good. This is the first one, and I think it was probably my second favorite of the lot. The second book, Artificial Condition, was my favorite of these so far. I absolutely loved it. I loved the other AI that was involved in this. I think the dynamic between that one and Murderbot is very funny, very entertaining, and that was some of my favorite parts of all of this series. So I absolutely loved the second book. And the third one, I feel like is kind of almost a repeat of the second one a little bit, but I didn't love it as much. When I was reading these, it kind of felt like you're watching a TV show and you kind of just have different episodes and there's different storylines that we kind of follow again and again, and it's just watching the different episodes of the TV show, which I was fine with. I really did enjoy it. But I wasn't quite as invested as I thought I was going to be first going into it. I think the second one I absolutely loved, and I thought that meant I was going to just adore the rest of the series, but the third one kind of went back a little bit to how I felt about the first one. So it was good. I really liked it, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you like sci-fi. It's nice to have these little sci-fi novellas that you can throw in there. Plus they have some great humor. The humor was well done, I think, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So yeah, I really liked these, and I am going to be continuing on with it. I think there's one more novella that I need to read, and then there's a novel. So yeah, definitely looking forward to the novel to see kind of how it is on a little bit of a longer book, but I think these are kind of perfect as novellas. And the next series that I read 2 books in was the second era Mistborn series. So I read Shadows of Self and The Bands of Mourning. These are the second and third books in that trilogy. And this trilogy is set 300 years after the time of the first era Mistborn ended. And we are following these characters, Wax and Wane, and they are lawmen, but they are drawn kind of back into the politics of the main hub of their country, their land, and I love it. I really like how the technology is blended with the magic. So in this world, they have guns, they have trains, and different inventions are happening. So the guns are really important because they can use them along with their magic, and that's really cool. It's not really like flintlock necessarily, but they have like pistols and shotguns and things like that, and those definitely come into play because of the different magic that is here. So you have 2 different forms. You have allomancy, where you can burn metals in order to give yourself different abilities, and then you have feruchemy, which you can take some of your abilities, store them in metal, and then use them later. It's kind of hard to describe. You probably should read the books. But I really enjoyed them. I didn't love this trilogy as much as I liked the first era of Mistborn, but I still did really, really like it. I liked the characters. I liked that these were a lot more humorous, and you get a little bit more of that satire and the different dynamics in this one between the main characters. Wax was very kind of stoic and serious, and then you have Wane, who is hilarious and doesn't take things seriously, and he's just his own guy. He's so unique, and I really liked him as a character, and their dynamics together was just great. So I really did love this. I am excited to read the 4th book, because going into this, I thought it was a trilogy and he just decided to add a 4th book onto the trilogy, but no. This 3rd book ended definitely in a way that means it is not a trilogy. We need that 4th book, and I'm really looking forward to it, but I don't think it's coming out until next year. It's probably coming out next November, because he tends to release in November, but I did like this book. I liked that it was an easy read, very easy to get into and to get invested in, and the pacing was really well done in this. You're kind of just going at a pretty quick pace throughout the majority of these books, and I loved it, and I liked learning more about the different magics and powers in this book and the different ways they can be manipulated. So this was a lot of fun, and I really, really loved it, and I'm looking forward to the 4th book. I kind of need it now, but it's fine. Okay, the next books are just all books that I've read continuations of a series, which is kind of cool. And the first one is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the 2nd book in the Harry Potter series. I don't feel like I really need to get into what this series is about. I'm reading it with my family, and we are going to read the whole series and then binge the movies at Christmas time. So this is probably one of my least favorite books out of the series, but reading it again this time, I actually appreciated some of the things more, and I really enjoyed it. I always love rereading books that I have such nostalgia for, so this has a definite nostalgia points for me. The next book I read was The Crimson Campaign by Brian McClellan. This is the 2nd book in his Powder Mage trilogy. This is a flintlock fantasy, and it kind of starts off after there has been this rebellion and they have overthrown the monarchy, and now they have to learn to run the government, but there are definitely other elements at play besides just them overthrowing their government and dealing with that. There's so much more going on in this. There are gods that come into play. There's other countries that are coming at them. It's definitely a very complicated and very political based fantasy book, but I really did enjoy this book a lot. I think I probably liked this one a little bit better than I did the first book. I liked some of the perspectives more than others though, which was kind of unfortunate because when we go back to the other person's perspective, I just wouldn't love it. I don't like Daniel. He is one of the main points of view that we have in this book, and I did not like him. He was so annoying. He was so frustrating. I couldn't stand him. I never really wanted to read from his perspective because I knew he would just do something stupid that would tick me off. But I really did enjoy following Tamas. I liked his perspective a lot. I think that was a very enjoyable one, and I liked Adamat? I liked reading from Adamat's perspective too because I think we learned some really cool things in there, and there is definitely twists and little plots going on behind the scenes that we got from Adamat, so I liked that. I like that getting from these different people's perspectives, you can see what's going on in different areas and how what they're doing is going to affect the other person, and I think it's it's going to culminate in something pretty big in the third book. I'm definitely looking forward to finishing this series, but I have so many books going on right now that I would be surprised if I finish this series by the end of the year, but hopefully so that I don't forget too much because I don't want to have to reread. The next book that I read is another continuation of a series, and that is Everblaze, which is the Keeper of the Lost Cities book 3. So this series follows a young girl named Sophie who is raised in the human world but then finds out she is an elf and is taken to the elf world and finds out she has these magical powers and abilities and things that are above and beyond what anyone else has or expected, and there are secrets hidden in her head that could be very important to a lot of different people. So this book was good. I feel like I struggle so much reading this series as an adult because the adults make very poor decisions and the children make terrible decisions as well. But I feel like when the children make these decisions, the adults are like, you know what, that is a very, very dangerous situation that you're going into and you're going to do it alone. But you know what, if I send another 13-year-old with you, that'll make it better and I'm just going to let you go and do this thing because it needs to be done. And I'm like, okay, my niece is about the same age as some of these kids, and I would never be like, yeah, you go on your own into this very dangerous situation. I'm sure you can handle it. It was just crazy out of control. I feel like in this series, the main character makes some very terrible decisions and breaks some very big, huge rules, and then it seems like there's going to be a punishment, but then there's not. So it's just kind of, it feels like it's low stakes is pretty much what I'm saying, but in all reality, it is a middle grade, and middle grades don't necessarily need high stakes, right? We don't need our middle grades to feel like Game of Thrones and The Red Wedding, right? We need them to have a little bit more of that happy feel to it. So I just need to accept that about these books, and I think that'll help me enjoy them a lot more. I like the series. It's fun. It's cute. I don't think I love this book quite as much, and I think it was mostly because I was struggling with some of those aspects of it. And also because the twists were quite obvious, like very, very, like, here, I'm handing it to you on a silver platter, you can guess the twist. So that also was a little bit disappointing. But overall, it was cute and fun, and I will definitely be continuing the series. Okay, and the last book that I read in the month of July was Age of Empire by Michael J. Sullivan. This is the sixth. This is the sixth and final book in his Legends of the First Empire series, and I love this series. This is a new favorite fantasy series. This series takes place in this world where the humans are very primitive. They are just inventing things like the wheel and pottery and things like that, and the Frey or the elves are considered gods to them. But then one day a human man kills one of the elves and things definitely explode from there. It gets big, it gets complicated, you get backstories of the world and the gods and the creations and everything that's intertwined, and I loved it. I think it was very, very well done. It starts off very easy to read and get into. I feel like the first book is a very basic fantasy. We're not getting too complicated here, and it's a very easy place for someone who's just getting into adult fantasy to start with, and it definitely gets more complex as we go, but I still think it's a very accessible writing style, and it's fun to read, it's easy to read, it's fast-paced, and I love so many of the characters. The characters are really so great in this book. I do feel like I didn't absolutely love the way that it ended. There's so much open, and I didn't feel like it was a completed series, and I know that things happen later in his world, which is probably why it felt that way. So he's written other books within this world, and they come after. So this is like a prequel series. So that definitely could be some of the reason why it felt that way, and I might feel better after I read some more of those, but it just didn't feel as wrapped up as I would have liked. But that's not terrible ending to a series. I just felt like after 6 books, I would like a little bit prettier ending for me. Also, one of the characters is just, ugh, I don't like him. He drives me nuts, and I feel like kind of got rewarded for being a jerk. So that bugged me. But, that's life, right? A little bit realistic. So I did love it. I thought this was a great series, and I definitely could see myself rereading this someday because it was so much fun, and I really, really loved it. And the last book that I started but I didn't finish was Master Artificer by Justin T. Call. This is the second book in his Silent Gods series, and the first book is Master of Sorrows. So I am not done with this, so I'm really not going to talk about it a whole ton here. I just kind of want to mention it because it was on my TBR Star Hop, so I wanted to say, like, yes, I actually did start it. I was successful at July's TBR Star Hop, but I will probably either do a focused review of this book plus the first book, or I will just talk about it in my August wrap-up. So honestly, with how my filming schedule is going, probably going to talk about it in my August wrap-up, let's be honest. But either way, I will talk about this sometime later because I'm not done with it yet. I don't know all my feelings on it. Okay, those are all the books that I read in July. I feel like this video is going to be so long because there were so many books to get through, but I had a great reading month. I had so many books that I loved and enjoyed. I don't feel like I had any that were just huge disappointments or letdowns, so that is always a great month for me. But let me know down in the comments what you think of any of these books. Like, which ones have you read and loved? Which ones are on your radar? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button down below. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.